in the pine trees. We hunt other than deer. The frost is white upon my skin. The air is cold, the air is thin. Run through the valley and over the hill. It's the unforgettable thrill of hunting moomin. Of hunting moomin. Are heavy as well as our packs. Our eyes scan the ground. Will we soon find their tracks? The frost is white upon my skin. The air is cold, the air is thin. Run through the valley and over the hill. It's the unforgettable thrill of hunting moomin. Hunting moomin. Back at the cottage, clean ourselves with steam. Resting in front of the fire, I soon fall into a dream. The frost is white upon my skin. The air is cold, the air is thin. Run through the valley and over the hill. It's the unforgettable thrill. The frost is white upon my skin. The air is cold, the air is thin. Run through the valley and over the hill. It's the unforgettable thrill of hunting moomin. Of hunting moomin. The snow crisp and clear. The birch ghosts in the pine trees. We hunt other than deer. The frost is white upon my skin. The air is cold, the air is thin. Run through the valley and over the hill. It's the unforgettable thrill of hunting moomin. Of hunting moomin. Are heavy as well as our packs. Our eyes scan the ground. Will we soon find their tracks? The frost is white upon my skin. The air is cold, the air is thin. Run through the see. Right, there I am. Yeah, this is my first attempt at a live stream. I spent a few hours during the week setting it up, and I think I've got it all working. So welcome everyone. You may know me from my videos walking through the Finnish forest talking about blockchain. And to be honest, last year I started noticing that I was getting a bit tired of that format. Plus, it's currently about minus 10 degrees outside. That's pretty cold. So the idea of doing a live stream and actually sitting inside a warm room was quite appealing. Tonight, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be walking through the Orthoverse, which is a Metaverse project that Richard Piacentini and I started about, well, actually pretty close to this date. I think it was 11 January, if I recall correctly, that the seed was first planted, as it were, in the ground, and the project's just continued to evolve from there. So what I'll do is I'll switch on the game frame so you can see what I'm actually talking about. It's been evolving over the last year. It does concern blockchain and it does concern Web3, but it's a whole lot more than that. And people occasionally ask me, what are you trying to achieve with the Orthoverse? And to be honest, neither Richard nor myself really truly know what it is and where it's going and why we're doing it. All we know is that we're having an awful lot of fun building this proto-metaverse, is probably a better term than a metaverse. And I certainly am learning a hell of a lot in the process. What I'll do is I'll dive in first and we'll actually have something interesting to look at rather than just my head in the bottom right hand corner in this static menu. You can see we've got a nice company logo, some graphics spinning around in the background. I'm just going to check my options and set the render distance down to 4 chunks so I'm not overloading the computer as I try to walk around this. Fortunately, I've got a CPU indicator in the bottom right here. The streaming broadcasting software has got very, very good actually compared to what it looked like the last time I looked at it, which I think was about 3 years ago. It looked so clunky back then that I thought I wouldn't give it a go, but you know, everything progresses, even the Orthoverse. So without any further ado, let's go in. Probably worth talking about this, not your normal login screen. People who aren't familiar with Web3 are going to look at that and say, well, why are those 2 top logging in buttons so strange? And the answer is that we're using Web3, we're using a blockchain wallet as a way of authenticating yourself to the game server rather than the usual user account of a username and a password. And that's the system that most people are used to. Everybody out there who uses the internet now probably has multiple accounts where they've provided their email and provided a password. And pretty much everybody has probably suffered from a data breach where a hacker manages to get into one of these companies, steal the credentials, crack them, and then if you've reused your password, they can start logging in to other sites too. So Web3 doesn't do that. It uses a web wallet, and that's what is popping up now and what you should be able to see at the top right of the screen. So I'm using MetaMask. It's the most popular wallet. There are other ones out there. That second button, Wallet Connect, is an example of another scheme using other wallets that you can use to connect. Oh, just had a comment that the volume is a little low. Maybe I should pull the mic a little bit up. I've got it on full volume, I think, but it could be if I put it closer to my head. Is that better, Demetrio? Anyway, I'll just keep going with this mic hanging around my head. It's all a bit new here. I'm sure I'll get the setup sorted out a bit better, and maybe if I speak louder it'll go better too. So let's log in. And it looks like I hadn't even connected my wallet. Right, just a click there, connect the wallet, sign in order to log in, and I'm in. And I should now, you see the first problem already that I hadn't checked. I'm not logged in as Blockchain Gandalf. I am logged in as somebody called Hetanar. Okay, thanks Identity Block for letting me know that the sound is good. I've got to remember to look across to the left-hand side and read what you guys are saying, because normally I'm just walking through the forest on my own and I don't have to give any feedback. Right, let's see. If I press the P button, The globe at the right, the Palantir, turns red, and I can see that there's 2 other people near me. So we've got Richard in here already, and someone called Callaghan. So nice to see you guys here, or rather know that you're here. And as you can see, if you let me have a look around, it's moving reasonably okay on my machine. I might actually log out and log back in again with less rendering distance, because of course I'm running the stream at the same time, and I've just been disconnected from the server. Well, don't worry, I have a backup server running here at home, so I can always switch to that, but it would be a lot more fun if we're all in the same world at the same time. Right, there we go. Let's have a second go. This time I'll try moving around. So as I said, this stuff has been written in our spare time, and it's certainly not production worthy software yet, but it is certainly functioning as a demonstration of how this all works and what might be possible if we were to use blockchain and Web3 in games. Games get a lot of, well, there are a lot of gamers out there who are not particularly happy with the idea of NFTs coming to games. And I can see where they're coming from, because nobody likes change, and the gaming industry has had some problems over the years in that companies being companies, they see gamers as a means of making money and of making a profit. And as a result, sometimes they do stuff that's not particularly good. This is not looking great on my front. Other people, are you all managing to stay in okay? Or is it just me? Let me move this off over here and see if I can debug something. I have to do this offline because I'm going to go into the guts of the system, and we haven't got everything completely tightly locked down, so we want to make sure that what I'm doing here, I'm going to be doing something that I don't want other people to copy. So let's see if I can fix things with this. This is going to be a bit dull for you guys, seeing me typing off to the side of the screen. Right, and we'll get rid of that and bring that back on. Sorry for the interruption. First stream, don't expect everything to go perfectly. I believe that gamers normally have 2 machines. They have one for streaming, and they have one for running the game on, and I may have to consider doing something like that. Right. Okay, 3rd time lucky. If this fails, well, then I'll be demonstrating some stuff without actually being in the real universe myself. And I guess one thing I could do is call up a link to the server and see what the output's doing there, except I've just realized that I haven't actually added myself the key to this machine to allow me to log into the server. Yeah, 𝘒𝘶𝘯𝘨, you can't actually change your name with this yet. That is something that is going to be coming along later. We have an avatar editor in the works. It's almost done. We just need to get the database working and hook it up to the world, and then you'll be able to go into that, and you'll be able to change your name, just not to a name used by anybody else. So yeah, I've seen other people have a problem with being kicked off the server as well. So in a sense, the fact that I'm having that problem too is actually a good thing, because it means that I'll have some logs that I can go and dig into in order to see if I can get to the bottom of why it's not working. It's kind of frustrating, because I was testing this, of course, being a former test engineer by career, and it was, of course, before the live stream actually all working fine. And now that I'm in front of an audience, it's kicking me out each time. So we'll have to see what we can do about that. Turns out it's quite difficult with live streaming to keep on top of all the things at the same time. You've got several screens. I feel a bit like an air traffic controller, trying to do too many things at the same time. I guess on the plus side, I'm not guiding aircraft around and accidentally making them crash into each other. So let's have another go over here off screen. Right. Nope, it's done it again. Right, bear with me a second. Always going to be technical hitches when you first do stuff. Okay, let's move that over here. Try a different attempt. Right. Well, I guess if the worst comes to the worst, I'll try and connect to my downstairs server. Won't be in the same world as you guys though, and that would be a shame. And I'm seeing other people leaving the game, so I'm imagining maybe they're getting kicked out too. Did you have that problem, 𝘒𝘯𝘯𝘨, that you just joined and then about 30 seconds, 60 seconds later it kicked you off again? Yeah, now I can't even... Yeah, let's see. Well, it is what it is. Fortunately, I have some backup stuff, so I may switch to that shortly. So anyway, rather than wandering around and trying to debug things, I thought I'd talk a little bit about the history of the Orthoverse. And for that, we need to go back in time, when the whole universe was in a hot, dense state, and then nearly 14 billion years ago, it started... Oh no, that's the Big Bang Theory. Back actually to the 1980s. And I think that's, for me, kind of in a sense where this all starts, because I liked Dungeons and Dragons. I read a lot of science fiction and fantasy novels, and I got my first computer, a ZX Spectrum. And one of the games that I absolutely adored in the mid-80s was a game called The Lords of Midnight by a man called Mike Singleton, who unfortunately I found out is no longer with us. But he wrote this fantastic world into a computer that only had 48K. And by modern standards, that is so tiny, that's like painting the Mona Lisa on a tenth of a matchbox. So, and he managed to write a world that by those standards was huge. It was, I think, 64 by 64 tiles in size, and it rendered mountains. And, you know, this is 30 years ago, so it's pretty ancient technology. No, more than 30 years ago, gosh. We're talking like 35 years ago, nearly 40. And when I saw that game, I thought, gosh, this is the kind of thing I would like to one day write myself. And I think that's where I initially really got into computer programming. The other thing that I very much liked in my teenage years was role-playing games, especially Dungeons and Dragons. But the funny thing was that there weren't many of us in the school who wanted to play it. And I actually found that just reading the books and reading the modules and things like that was just as much fun, maybe more so than actually playing the game. It was because in a sense you could sort of see the possibilities. Then of course there's all these science fiction novels that I've been referring to, and they kind of are the introduction to the concept of the metaverse that's now being touted around as a potential future for the World Wide Web. Meta's poured which used to be called Facebook, has poured an immense amount of money into it. And the funny thing is that they're all derived from these science fiction novels from the 80s and the 90s. The famous one everyone knows is Neil Stephenson's Snow Crash. And that's actually where the term the metaverse was originally coined. So it's Neil Stephenson who came up with the idea for the metaverse, drawing on the idea of other writers too. For example, there's a guy called Vernor Vinge. He wrote a novelette called True Names back in the mid-80s. And of course, the other thing is, round about then we had the internet becoming more public. If you went to university, you could play with it. And we had multi-user dungeons. So a lot of the stuff was actually already being realized. And I don't really understand why the current talk about the metaverse is particularly focusing on virtual reality and 3D-ness. The only reason I can really think for this is that people have different ways of visualizing the world. And I'm using the word visualizing, and that actually gives you an indication of where I'm going, which is that for a lot of people, vision is the primary sense. But for other people, there are other senses that are much more significant to them. Some people are much more attuned to sound or to feelings and touch. And some people actually don't have vision. So if you are trying to build a Web3 world and you are focusing entirely on 3D vision, you're cutting out a large chunk of people to whom it's not as meaningful. So the fact is that it is possible for something to be immersive, which is a phrase that often is used in conjunction with the metaverse. Something can be immersive without it having to be a virtual realistic 3D world that is stereoscopically being transmitted into your eyes. A good novel is immersive, an audiobook is immersive, a two-dimensional movie on a movie screen is immersive. So I don't see why all the effort is going there, but maybe somebody can enlighten me as to why it has to be 95% focused on 3D. I see Glenn mentioning another book that I was going to raise, which is Neuromancer, I presume is the one you meant, not Necromancer, but maybe the spell checker corrected that for you. Yes, that's a great one too. And a similar one about the kind of the real world and the virtual world sort of merging in a way. We've had a lot of stuff since those, but they're certainly early foundations of it. So I'm going to try and connect in again. I think somebody was saying that they had managed to get in and stay in for a while, and it would be more fun to be in the world at the same time as other people. But as I said, failing that, I will go into a copy of it, because of course that's a big difference between virtual worlds and the real world. It's a lot easier to make a copy. Or is it? I'll be coming back to that. So let's give it one final try and see how long I last. I wonder if there's something about the first person going in getting priority and then everybody else is shunted off. Anyway, there is a limit to the number of people that can connect, which is there's a total of 12. I set that low just to make sure that it didn't crash, but we're actually well underneath it at 4 people, which unfortunately at the moment puts us lower than the European Union Metaverse Party, where reportedly only 6 people turned up. Although I have read reports since from the EU where they say that's absolute nonsense. We did not spend 350,000 euros on a virtual world party and only 6 people turned up. They claim it's more like 340, which, to be honest, made me laugh, because that means it's 1,000 euros per party member, so I don't think it's anything to be proud of. I'm really not having much luck, guys, with connecting in to the real world. Let's see if my local one is any better. Right. Excuse this sore throat, by the way. As usual, the demo isn't working. I woke up this morning with a slight croakiness to my throat, but you can't cancel these things once you've set them up unless it's very serious. Anyway, so this looks a bit better, and the plus side here is that I should be the only one in there, and it should run a bit better. I've got another strange name now. Should have checked that a bit carefully. So now I'm in a copy of the world. You would, if you are in the real one, be able to actually follow where I'm going, but you just won't be able to see me. And if I press P to see who's there, there's no one in because it's on my LAN. No one can see it. And this actually, as a test engineer, gives me an indication that perhaps the problem is internet connection. That I'm streaming, that's going to be quite bad for the bandwidth of my internet. And then maybe also trying to run the game over it at the same time is going to be causing some problems. So maybe that's what gets to the bottom of it. Anyway, at least I'll be able to go through some things and talk to you about them. Yes, Dimitri, I'll take €1,000 to attend parties is what he's saying. Yeah, I think I would too. I'd quite happily, you know, especially if they threw in the flights and a hotel room. And then I think that would be a reasonable amount to receive to participate in a... Well, actually, you wouldn't need flights, would you? I guess we're talking about the Metaverse party. No, I've been kicked off the server on my local network too. So that means that it's probably an interaction problem. And I am going to have to look into how on earth do I set up two computers and get them running at the same time. So maybe... One last thing that I can try is to reduce a bit of the load on my machine by checking that what is running. And have I got ℏ installed on this one? Nope. Let's see what I've got running. Well, I've got Brave, which is taking most of the CPU. And I've got OBS, which is the software that is doing the streaming. I'm surprised that Brave is using that much stuff, so I'm going to try completely killing it, making sure it's absolutely gone. Yeah, so that got rid of that one. Maybe just restarting the browser completely will solve it. Very frustrating, but you know, it's the way of the world. And let's start up again. Try again. If at first you don't succeed, try again, and then give up. There's no point being big-headed about it. Right. Oh, VPN. Yeah, I'm... to be honest, unlike... normally I have VPN on. I did actually turn it off for this. Oh, there, that's going to be a problem, isn't it? I'm going to have to re-enter my password. And I will do that off screen. Even though you shouldn't be able to see anything, it's always better to be on the safe side than be sorry. Right. Now it's giving me all sorts of information that I don't want. Here we go, bring it back on. You can see my vast fortune of $482 in ETH. And let's see, I haven't actually managed to sign the challenge, have I? There we go. Right. So, given that I'm getting kicked off both ways, it suggests that it's not the server and it's browser overload. Oh, so in fact, maybe the best thing to do is to disconnect and to really go down to a low render distance, 3. Maybe 3 chunks will handle it. There we go. You must be getting pretty bored of watching me logging on and off to the Orthoverse. No, JC, my password is not doomed. It is a random collection of letters, numbers, and characters. In fact, back in 1992, I was taking a train up to Scotland from Cambridge, and back then, of course, no mobile phones, no tablets. I forgot to take a book with me, and so I had absolutely nothing to do. And but I did have a pen and paper on me, So what I did was I looked out the train window, and whenever I saw a number or a letter, I wrote it down, and I made a password and then another one, and I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but it was a lot of them. And by the time I got up to round about Sheffield or somewhere like that, I had a large collection of passwords, and I spent the rest of the journey through to Edinburgh and then on to Glasgow, memorising them all, and then on my way back to Cambridge too. And they all stood me in good stead for a long, long time, but I think I ran out. So it won't be one of those, but it's not doomed 1, 2, 3, 4 either. Okay, all right, so we've got the demo disaster, and what I'm going to have to do is I'm just going to have to try and do this quickly. So, and then of course I can just talk endlessly about blockchain, but I was really hoping this would be more of a practical demonstration, because I don't normally get to do those. So because my render distance is so small, I've got a lot of seeing people floating off in space before the various lands have rendered. And to be honest, this rendering is really, really slow, which is not a good sign. I've actually fallen through the earth. It hasn't even managed to get all the data yet. So I think it's going to be a combination of that. Bad browser and bad network connectivity. And I'll need to bring my second PC that works very well up. It's a bit disturbing for the Orthoverse, to be honest, Richard, because if it's not working with this setup, then somebody on a low power PC isn't going to be able to use it, and that kind of defeats the whole point of having it all in a browser in the first place. And then you might as well stick it in a standalone compiled binary instead, but that would make us like all the other voxel worlds out there. So it's one for the task list. So what I wanted to do was to walk around the world and show you some of the things there and explain what they're about. The first thing to know is that the world is broken up into, or divided into, a total of 10,000 lands. Each land is 96 by 96 voxels in size, which is actually surprisingly big. When I first saw that, I thought, oh, 96 by 96, that's not going to be very much, is it? But as it turns out, you can build some pretty big things in a world that size, as you can see here with this castle. And I'm guessing I'm not actually logged in properly. So a good thing that we don't have a large number of people in the world, because I don't think I'm even logging in properly. Right, so Richard's been on for half an hour and everything's gone fine for him. Well, that's just Richard, you just proved that you're a developer. Right, this is what happens whenever a test engineer goes to a developer and says, I can't get your software to work. The first thing that a developer always says is, well, it works fine on my machine. And then the next thing they say is, oh yes, I think it's a bug, but it's not in our code, it's in the operating system. And then the third thing they say is, yes, it's in the code that we have produced, but it's not in my code. And then the fourth thing they say is, yes, it is a bug, it's in the code, it is indeed in some of the code that I wrote, but looking at it, I don't think we can fix this without a major work like refactoring. And then you go back the next day and they'll say to you, oh yeah, that was trivial, I fixed that yesterday, don't worry about it. So there you have it. That's what it's like with developers. I've slowly been becoming one myself, and I think I'm picking up some of their habits too. You start actually seeing it when you actually start coding, and then you're dealing with people sending you messages saying it didn't work for me. Do you know what I am missing that I always have open? And that is the console. So I'll try opening that up. Now, you see, that's it. Even Control Alt I think, for the console, and it's not coming up. That is weird. Where are we? Why don't I have inspect here? There is something strange going on. I'm going to have another shot of completely closing down Brave, and then I'm going to go over and pkill -9 Brave. So let's see. That should kill all the Braves that are running on here. I should have stuck a Chrome on here too, shouldn't I? And then I'll try relaunching it from the very beginning. Yeah, I think you might be right, Richard, when you say that it's the streaming software. I think I mean, it claims in order to be sending the stream, it's only taking 9 or 10% of my CPU. Let's do a speed test. Speedtest.net. Okay. Right. So people, I'm going to block that. Yeah, I mean, look at that. That's not looking bad at all, is it? 200 megabits per second upload? Download, rather. So I should be getting the information quickly enough. And what's the upload like? Okay, so this is probably killing my stream though, isn't it? When this comes through, if somebody says, no, we didn't notice a glitch at all, then do tell me. Or, yeah, it actually went all juddery. It would be useful to know. Now, so that's all working fine too. And as I said, I was using this earlier and it was all going fine. Why? Now let's start again. Okay, let's switch to full cam. Start it all up again. Connect in again. Well, thanks 𝘒𝘶𝘯𝘨. I don't know how you pronounce it. I'm glad the stream is good. Maybe the stream is too good. Right, back to gaming. Play. No, cancel that. Let's go back to the options. Still on 3 chunks. Good. Still play. Along with MetaMask. The amount of signing I'm doing with that here is. Oh yeah, we're back to that again. Right. Yeah. See, that was better. I could drag it rather than dragging the whole thing off the screen. I didn't even know I could do that. Just grab MetaMask and move it around. Brilliant. Have a lot of fun with that later. So the funny thing about streaming is you're getting feedback from people writing comments, but you're sort of talking to yourself, like you've gone, well, I mean, slightly mad. But I was walking through the woods a lot recording videos, but the thing is I was talking to my phone and that didn't feel so odd. Whereas here I'm looking at a screen and I'm sort of talking almost, you know, it's like a stream of consciousness thing where you're doing stuff and then you're sort of verbalizing what it is that you're doing. I can see that it's going to take a bit of getting used to be honest. Right. Final try, but I'm just so suspicious that it failed both, and it's moving so slowly as well compared to what it did. I'm suspicious that it failed with both the local copy and with the network copy. That's a piece of information, and I'm not sure why it's not picking up that I'm in my own land. I should be. And I'm still not getting the information bar. There is something seriously wrong with Brave. That's what I'm going to put it down to. Let's try Shift 7 and see if that does anything. No. Yes, Juicy, like being a DJ when none of the records will play. Yes. It's almost ironic, right? I'm here as a test engineer by trade, doing a demo, and it's not working. And I should have probably checked better. Well, on the plus side, we're 36 minutes in. I'm sorry that most of it has been spent on debugging, but you know, it is what it is. Maybe as an emergency backup, I can switch to a sneak preview of the avatar designer, which is, unless that doesn't work. No. That's not working either. That was working earlier too. And then the final attempt might be to call up Firefox. Why didn't I think of that earlier? Does it even come with Firefox? Yep, it does. I won't have MetaMask for that, so I've got that installed. Right. Right. Oh, nope, I killed it. When a terminal warns you that there's a process running in your console and you say kill it anyway, that will also kill the browser that you were running from that console. That is a rookie mistake. Right. Okay, well, let's try it as a guest. I bet I'll get a Web3 renderer. Oh no, we're in. Right, attempt 2. That is looking a little bit smoother. I won't be able to build or demonstrate anything. Right, yeah, Richard has just commented that we had the boring castle and then suddenly my real one appeared. Well, I walked into 𝘒𝘯𝘨 with, using Brave, logged in as BC Gandalf. And when I was in there, the build bar didn't show up at the bottom of my screen, which it should have. There should have, if I can, well, I can't point it. I'm pointing at the screen as though you guys can see it, but of course the camera's pointing at me, and it's not pointing at me, pointing at the screen. But anyway, maybe I can use the mouse pointer. So there should have been a build bar appearing here, but it didn't appear, which suggested that I wasn't actually logged in the right account. But I hit Shift 7 to load the castle from my account, and clearly it worked. It just took an awful long time for that to come through. So I think I've got a lot of testing to do here, the other guy, an awful lot of testing. But on the plus side, we're finding out some really interesting stuff with the help of other people being around. Plus, at least you guys get to see my nice build. This is one of the things that my sons taught me over Christmas, was that I'd been building all these blocky things, which I was quite proud of, like, for example, the Orthoverse here that you can see as I walk up to it. Then one of them said, well, you do know you can make nicer builds in voxel worlds using slabs and stairs. And I kind of said, no, well, actually, I didn't know that. It hadn't even crossed my mind. And so I went and looked online and found some tutorials as to how you can build things like medieval castles. And one of them helped me build the first tower. And it turns out, and I think there's something interesting going on here psychologically, that you're kind of attuned to the voxel world, that each block is a certain size. You know, they're all the same standard size, and you get used to it looking that way. And then you find out that there are these blocks that are actually subdividing blocks into, what are we looking at? 8. Yeah, 2 by 2 by 2. So 8 blocks. And that makes it look more high definition. So you have this weird situation where you're looking at something like this castle, and I mean, it's still awfully blocky when you think about it, but because you become attuned to the fact that the world blocks are a certain size, the fact that you're seeing things built with blocks that are a fraction of that size makes it look a lot more impressive. And actually what I will do is I'll walk around and go up a hill, if it'll allow me to, and point out the other thing, which is, here's the boring way of making a mountain or a hill, which is you just build it like a ziggurat or one of those Central American pyramids, and they look okay. But if you look across to the roofs of the towers there, you'll notice that whoever designed this, because I have to say it was I did not invent this myself, it is copied off a tutorial. Whoever designed it is using a technique where they're filling blocks in along the diagonal, along the corner of the tower. So rather than building a ziggurat, they're building this strange, it reminds me a bit of a game from the 80s called 𝘒𝘶𝘯𝘨, where you had this funny chap with a long nose, and he was just like, so Pac-Man with a long nose and 2 legs, and jumping from block to block, and they staggered the blocks like that. And that looks a lot more impressive than a ziggurat. So am I pronouncing the word ziggurat correctly? I don't, it's one of those words that I've read, but I'm not sure I've ever used it in conversation before. I must have, but I don't know, maybe I haven't. Anyway, so that technique, using the building up the corners and doing this sort of staggered layered thing, just looks an awful lot more impressive. And I think it's all about twisting up the expectations. So it's your mind has got used to the fact that it's a voxel world, all the blocks are a certain size, and everything is going to be done in a boxy manner. So if you're building something, whenever you can build it, I would guess one of the ground rules is make sure the perspective is shifted. And oh, somebody's just said 𝘒𝘶𝘯𝘨 appeared in Wreck-It Ralph, and that Wreck-It Ralph was a good movie actually, and I have to admit I didn't spot him, but that may be because I was watching it with the kids and they distracted me. Next time they watch it, and believe me, they will watch it again because they watch everything about 8 or 10 times at least. I'll have to keep an eye out for him. Right. Right, anyway. I'm actually staying in a lot longer this time, aren't I, guys? So I can't build because I don't have MetaMask installed on this browser, and I'm not going to install a blockchain wallet on a live stream. And just a piece of advice to all of you guys out there, don't you go and install a blockchain wallet while you're live streaming either. That is probably one of the most stupid things you can do. That is like having a documentary crew following you around and then showing the camera your bank card and then putting it into the ATM and typing in your PIN code. It's not secure. You want to do that kind of stuff when nobody's looking. Which, the shamefulness of crypto money, I guess. Right, what I am going to do now is first comment on the fact that it is actually fun to see all these people around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 now, plus myself, so that makes 6. And they're all basically hanging around in the neighborhood. I'm going to dash off to a different place, and that will use the teleport function of the hinges. And it worked. Whoa, it worked. I actually managed to get there without ending up in the ground or falling out the bottom of the land or things like that. Right, and I'm going to head, except I went to the wrong one. The hinges are named after the Finnish names for the compass points, by the way. And I had this genius idea that I could learn them if I named the Orthoverse hinges after them. And the funny thing about Finnish compass points is they have a unique name for the 8 of them. So they don't call it northeast. They have a word for it, which I don't know. And that goes to show you that my plan, which is to memorize these words by naming the various henges after them, has failed dismally. 𝘒𝘯𝘯𝘨 henge. There we are, 𝘒𝘯𝘨. That's southwest. And I think that's... No, but no, it's not southwest. You see, I'm still failing. Oh, someone's following me around. I'm still failing at it. I need one beginning with L. So I'm going to try going through here. West, no, that was south. That's taken me to 𝘒𝘯𝘯𝘨 henge, which I know, that one I do know. 𝘒𝘯𝘯𝘨 means of the north. So we'll go down again. That should take me to the Orthoverse henge. There are 9 henges in total, because I had this thought that it's a surprisingly big world to walk around. I think it takes like 30 or 40 minutes to get from one end to the other, and about 20 to walk from the center to the edge. So I thought it would be a good idea to have some kind of transportation system. And whenever someone says transportation system, of course, the first thing is that you should build a teleportation henge. So 𝘒𝘶𝘯𝘨. More evidence that crypto is just a big MMO. Don't know. Don't really know what that acronym is for. I'm not sure if I even want to. Right. Anyway, I got distracted there. So I will head this direction. Land names. Well, there's some interesting stories behind that. So I had this idea of using, well, it's not generative art if you're creating names, but I had this idea of using a program to stitch together syllables to make the names. And it works. I've used it for the character names and I've used it for the land names. And so the idea is take a bunch of fantasy or sci-fi looking names, look at the typical syllables that appear in those names and break them up. So into pieces, put them into 3 arrays, and then for each land, when it is first generated, use the blockchain address that the token for the land is associated with as the sort of random seed for generating the name. And initially, I didn't create enough collections of syllables, which I should have done because I know about the birthday paradox, the one where if you have a room full of people, how many do you need to have in order for there to be at least a 50% chance that 2 have a birthday in common? So I just looked at it in terms of, oh, I've got this many syllables, and therefore you pick 3 of them, you make the land name, and there's only going to be 10,000 lands, and there are, you know, 1 million possible land name combinations, so there's not going to be any clashes. But of course I was totally wrong, because when you have 10,000 names and there's only 1 million to select from, the odds of 2 of the random seeds giving you the correct name, which I cannot calculate off the top of my head, but the odds are incredibly high that there will be multiple common ones. And in fact, by the time I'd realized this, we already had 4 duplicate land names in the first 1,000. So Richard and I came up with the idea of adding magna or parva to the end of the name of the land to sort out the duplicates, which is Latin for greater and lesser, or upper and lower. I think it's greater and lesser. Anyway, in Leicestershire there are a whole bunch of towns that you know, there are a whole bunch of towns that have magna and parva at the end, and then I just added more syllables, and now I think there's a total of 1 billion that you can have, and it's but we're only going to have 10,000, so it's not a problem. But anyway, that's where the land names come from, and it's basically because I've gone through fantasy novels and picked fantasy names and cut the various syllables out that they often sound very familiar. But we haven't had any duplicates of any copyrighted names, I hope, because here's the thing that you need to consider with these kind of things. These names are all being generated randomly, And now you've got a small chance that you'll randomly generate a name that's been used by a science fiction or a fantasy writer, and if they're successful, there'll be an estate that owns is holding the copyrights for the author, and you could well get sued for copyright infringement if you accidentally create a land called Gondor or Mordor in your world. Then you are technically, or not copyright, sorry, you may be infringing a trademark. And the Lord of the Rings estate in particular has got quite a lot of trademarks for various things. So they can't trademark Gandalf because that's a name that Tolkien drew from the Elder Eddas, the Icelandic sagas, mythology. But they can, for example, and have trademarked Balrog because Tolkien just made that up. And similarly, I think, for Mordor and Gondor, and but again, you can't trademark the Shire because it's just a word used in common parlance. Although I'm not sure, I'd have to ask our resident lawyer of 𝘒𝘶𝘯𝘨 if using the Shire for a name for a fantasy realm would be a problem. I imagine it's a slippery slope where it's fine to have a realm called the Shire. It's fine to have one that's called the Shire in a fantasy world. You might be getting onto difficult. You might get into difficulties if your fantasy realm called the Shire had a bunch of short people living in it, and you certainly would be if they were called hobbits. So, yes, well, I got a question while I was wittering on about Lord of the Rings, and I've got a question for Big Grant, but it looks like the other guys already answered that. However, it's a good question, and that's something I can do without needing to worry about getting kicked off the server. If you go to Orthoverse.io, that is the companion site to Orthoverse.land, and there is a link there called the map, and that calls up a zoomable, scrollable map. And at the top of it, and look, Richard, I found another bug. The banner is overwriting the search tab. I wonder if Control minus. Nope. In Firefox, it doesn't position that correctly. Anyway, so there we go. The curse of the demo strikes again. If you go into that little box, you can type in the name that you're looking for. In your case, it's 𝘒𝘶𝘯𝘨. There we go. It's found it. By the way, the later lands, they have longer names because they have 4 syllables, except 3. So the earlier names closer to the henges only have 3 syllables, and you'll notice, or generally only have 3. The later ones have longer ones. There's more syllables. You get some more strange sounding names, but I kind of like that because it reminds me a bit of Roger Zelazny's The Chronicles of Amber, where the center of the realm, everything is sort of lawful and organized, and then as you go through these things called the shadows, further and further away from the real world into mirror copies of the world, things get stranger and weirder, and presumably the names of those places will get weirder too. But anyway, Big Grant, there's that would be your land if that's what you're looking for. And we can actually zoom out and see where that would be. So the map is a great way of finding where you want to go to. We can see that it's in the southeast, and then once you've gone in the author henge through the southeast teleportal to the southeast island, you'll come out in the middle here on this henge, which is 𝘒𝘶𝘯𝘨 henge, and then you would have to head northwest. How do you engage the teleport function, Robert? Yeah, well, it's a good question. What you do is you go and examine a henge, and you'll notice something interesting about them on the ground. And when you see that, maybe you want to walk onto it and see what happens. I've kind of given the game away there, but I don't want to just spell everything in the Orthoverse out. There's no fun. It's like if I describe everything that's going on, it's like being given a murder mystery and being told who the perpetrator was before you've even started page 1. But yes, Big Grant, you would then go northwest, and then when you hit the sea, if you you would then head south probably. Would be the easiest way to do it. By the way, extra clue is to move faster. I'll open this in a second tab. To move faster, if you let me log in very quickly as a guest. We're so lucky that we don't have a huge crowd of people coming in because I can only support 12. If you press P, not P, what am I saying? If you press E, then you'll see that a boot on the, which is neatly being covered up by my head. Well done, Kia. There, this boot. Press E, it goes grey. Press E again, it goes brown. When it's brown, you can jump twice as high and run twice as fast. And that, therefore, is a very useful, if you hold down the run button, it allows you to zoom through the realm a bit faster. So, but Richard, I think we're getting some interesting information about lag and latency from me doing this with the stream running, because when I was testing this earlier without the stream, I was just zooming through all the trees, and now clearly the instruction to run is taking a little bit longer. Not sure what we can do about it quite now, but knowing there's a problem gets you sort of halfway to solving the problem, and then a lot of hard work and a lot of Googling and Stack Overflow solves the rest. All right. so just seeing the other guy saying that he doesn't know how to spell Finnish compass coordinates. Does beg the question, what have you been doing with your life? Right, guys, we're coming up to the end. It wasn't as thrilling as I had hoped it would be, and I didn't manage to cover a single item on my suggested list of what to talk about if things went wrong. It'll be interesting to look back and see how incoherent all this was. But yeah, it's been an experience. I'll have to consider whether we go on with the next one once I've reviewed how this went and how I can fix it. Because unless I can get the Orthoverse to run smoothly for me while doing streaming, I don't really see much point, because nobody wants to watch yet another hour of me trying to debug things. Well, the sun is coming up over the hills in the Orthoverse now. It's looking quite pretty. I do like the sunrises, actually. And I have to add, I did add them. That reminds me, I have to say a big thank you to the 𝘒𝘶𝘯𝘨 developers. All this stuff is built on a set of libraries provided by a bunch of volunteer developers working on an open source project for no pay in their spare time. Presumably none of them have any kids, or if they do, only one or two, because I don't see how they've managed to build up such a mass of code if they also had family responsibilities. But clearly it's something that they've really enjoyed, and they've produced a really good thing, 𝘒𝘶𝘯𝘨. It provides all the engine for rendering the, hanging together this voxel world. And then there's also this library called 𝘒𝘶𝘯𝘨, which actually does the rendering. That takes the information that 𝘒𝘶𝘯𝘨 gets and actually makes it appear on your screen. So the fact that this stuff is available now, that you can go out and get a world-class 3D rendering program or a voxel world server and client system just for free off GitHub, because it's open source, is one of the amazing things about the current state of programming. The fact that people do this stuff out of the love of it and just put it out there for people to use. So big thanks to you guys. Very much appreciated. Right, I'm going to wrap up now because I am exactly at midnight and I do need to get some sleep because it's a bit late, and I do have to make breakfast for everybody tomorrow because we always have waffles on Sunday. So thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for asking questions. And we'll see next week how it goes. Wish me luck. Bye for now. Unpredictable teachings keep me alive with the knowledge you give me. Keep me alive with your intellectual rigor. Keep me alive by keeping me with you. By those unknown reactions, keep me alive by the magic you do. Keep me alive with your excitement and newness. Keep me alive by keeping me with you. With your storm-damaged living,